All right. Are we good? All right. Hello and welcome to this review of Mixtape. Full disclosure, I am still recovering from some oral surgery I had this past week, and so speaking is a little bit difficult. And actually, what's more difficult is smiling. So if I look really sad, that is partially just because of that. Um, but yeah, I just want to talk about this game. I want to talk about my feelings on it, and yeah, everything about it, because I think this was a very mixed bag of an experience, and I just want to talk about all those feelings. So yeah, Mixtape. So just before we jump into Mixtape, what is Mixtape? Mixtape is a more story-driven game about these three teenagers who are they're about to have their last night together, and so they're trying to plan how they're going to experience this last night together, and in the process reminisce about their relationships, particularly the main character's relationships with her two friends, Slater and Cassandra, or Cassandra. I can't remember which one it is. The main character's name is, oh gosh, I'm forgetting it, Stacy, I think. Yeah, Stacy. And so the game is mostly focused on the story with some interactive elements. And yeah, so if you are new to my review system, which everyone should be because it's my first time doing this live, I break down these reviews into these different categories. So these being presentation, gameplay, progression, and narrative. Gameplay and progression kind of go together, but this is generally what I try to break things down by. So starting out with presentation. So as you can see, this is a very pretty game, and so I was almost going to break down everything by pros and cons. So starting with the pros, the style is very consistent, and when I say consistent, I mean like consistently good and really and consistent in terms of it being this stop motion feel, and like almost to the point where it almost felt like, and not like 2D stop motion, but actually like almost borderline like a Studios type animation, and it's consistent throughout the entire game. There's not like a point where it breaks that style to become something else. There's maybe like one sequence I can think of that kind of breaks that, but for the most part, it's always consistent in terms of it being the stop motion feel, this almost painterly feel to some extent, but not like in the animated sense, more just in the like it almost feels like it is like there are figures that have been painted within this world. So yeah, it's very consistent. I'd say it was consistently very solid. The stop motion feel is effective without ever being distracting. This is actually a big complaint I usually have about the movies like Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse, is that I feel like when they do this approach of having the stop motion effect, it's often like really heavy and very distracting, for me at least, and it becomes almost very indulgent in itself, and the fact that it's doing this stop motion effect to the point where I'm not actually getting invested with the story at all. This didn't really happen here. I feel like I was able to be consistently engaged with the story for the most part, in spite of the stop motion. Like I think the stop motion effect, if anything, was just very like not a big factor in my engagement with the game. And maybe that's because most of the stop motion is just applied to the characters. Everything else is still like 60 frames or so, or something like that. But yeah, it never got too distracting. And then many of the sequences are truly beautiful, like truly, like there are some stunning sequences in here. And I get to this in the next point, but I did play this on Switch too, and I'll just bring this up here. Cons. And yeah, the resolution is not great on Switch 2, and so if I'm going to recommend you play this anywhere, I would say play it on something that's more powerful, like a PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, PC, whatever you can play it on. Because I think I started playing the game on my monitor, but then quickly realized this is not going to work. I need to move this to handheld and play the rest of the game like that. And it did look much better on handheld, weirdly. I feel like I was able to actually enjoy it a lot better that way. And in many ways, I think it was more comfortable that way. But yeah, there's some really stunning sequences that really like there were moments where I was like really struggling to be into the game, but then I take a moment and be like, you know what, this is like playing a music video, and it's really really cool. So yeah, it's worth it for those sequences. And so yeah, but cons, Switch 2, the resolution is a little lacking, but then also sometimes lip syncing felt off. This was more of an issue I had at the beginning, which again may have been just my setup, but it was noticeable. And I think maybe that was an element of the stop motion effect that kind of made that tricky. But and maybe it was a Switch 2 thing as well. But I found that was a little distracting, not horrible, but a little distracting. Music, pros, stellar soundtrack. Duh. That's the whole game is built around music and this main character's love of music. Just make sure I don't have anything incriminating in the background. I'm good. Yeah, but it's about her love of music and how she applies her music taste to her life and has like really connected to those moments or whatever. And so of course the music is full of incredible songs, and like songs pulled from the 80s, 70s, and 80s. It's really really excellent. And the music fit nearly perfectly with all the sequences, even the simple ones. I actually really particularly enjoyed the really simple sequences within the game, where you could actually, you're just like, there's one in particular I really loved where you're just skipping, you're throwing rocks at things, and I was just having a really fun time knocking bottles off of cars and stuff, and the music that plays in the background is just very fitting for where you are in that moment. And then of course all the more extravagant sequences are really fun, and music just fits really well. There's a really good balance between like what the tone of the music and the gameplay that you actually are doing. And if you're a fan of 80s music, you will love this. Like if you love 80s music, especially if you are a big fan of this music that's in this game specifically, you will lose your mind. It is really really honing in on that. On the con side of this, if you're not big into 80s music, you may not love this. And I think that's where I kind of was falling a bit in some cases. Like I love 80s music, but I think there are a lot of moments throughout this that I was like, I don't know what the song is, and I like it, but like I'm not like losing my mind from nostalgia by any means. I think it kind of relied a bit on that for you to be really sucked in. Also, mostly non-original tracks. There might be some, I'm sure like a lot of the more atmospheric tracks were original, but who knows. And I think there's part of me that kind of wishes it wasn't like copyrighted music, and or I don't know if it's copyrighted, but you know, this music that's I don't know. I think it would. I would have had more respect for this game for the most part, kind of. If all the tracks were also like the 80s inspired music, I think that would have been really cool. But I guess that's not a big con, because I think it still is the nature of the game and the story that it is real 80s music. But it's a little bit of disappointment. It's one of those things where like this game could have been like a big contender for like best soundtrack of the year if it wasn't for the fact that these are not original tracks. Audio, this one I kind of struggled with. I usually do. I didn't really know much to put in it because most of it is just about the music. So pros, leans heavily into nostalgic sound bites like cassette tapes, lighters, arcade games, etc. There's just like I just noted like sound effects I noted throughout it that like just feel like you're in the 80s. Like it's not nothing much, but I think there's a lot of just like those little things about the things you picked up, the way that they engaged with the technology of the era, that was really satisfying. That was cool. And cons, there are times when I wished the sound effects would sync up with the music more. And this ties into a big complaint I have, which I'll get more into when talking about gameplay. But I think the sound effects are solid. They're fine, but I think like it would have been all the more exciting if the sound effects actually played a role with the music. But that's that. Next. Okay, so now we move on to gameplay. So this is the area I'm most I feel like I have the most issues with. And so we'll just jump right into the core gameplay of it all. So pros, sequences can be incredibly atmospheric and immersive. there are some sequences that I like genuinely actually brought me like get me kind of well up a bit, because they're like really genuinely just like really immersive and wholesome, or um I don't know, just like just they really like suck you in, and really um I don't know, they like there's one sequence in particular, and where that I don't want to spoil it because it's a short game, so I think if you want to play it, I don't want to spoil any of the sequences really, those major sequences that is. But there's some sequences that I genuinely was like, I felt like I was there with them, and I think that was really really cool, and I think that's kind of what they were trying to achieve with this game, was to make you feel like you're a part of this friend group, and I think in those sequences it really succeeded. The balance of beautiful sequences and humorous sequences is solid. I think just in general there was a good balance between like the really beautiful like and lavish like oh like nostalgia sequences whatever, and then this the really silly like kind of one-off sequences that are there. There's only one that I think goes on, one humorous one that I think goes on for a little bit too long, and it's this one where you go into to a movie like a blockbuster or something, and it just goes on for way too long, and to the point where I was like, I might have to just like I might have to take a break. um but otherwise I think most of the sequences were like that were really silly or like really quick to the point, and the beautiful ones that like didn't overstay their welcome, so I think that it was really good balance. Last pro, there's a surprising amount of variety between sequences. Yeah, like they're with the exception of probably there's like some like sequences where you're like flying, those kind of get repeated a few times, and of course the skating gets repeated quite a few times, but for the most part even those like they're different every time you come to them. They're not the same mechanics, um and so I think that's what kind of where the game keeps you engaged, is the variety of different sequences that you can play. And so I appreciated the game for having this much variety. Okay, then we get to the cons. So the game mostly plays itself, and what I mean by that is there's no stakes for losing. The most you get in terms of stakes is like in the first sequence you're just skateboarding, and if you run into a car, it will just rewind a bit and you just like dodge the car in the next take. But that's not really like constituting like a punishment. It's just more like oops, like try again. Um, uh, but the game, yeah, there really is, and I think that's it's very intentional that they did it this way. But there's part of me that kind of wishes that there was something that I could be like aiming for to do better in each sequence. In fact, there's like the one sequence I was talking about with where you're throwing rocks at bottles and stuff. I kind of I was playing it with the mentality of like, oh, if I get all the like of this thing, maybe I'll get a reward, and maybe I'll get something bonus or something. And who knows, maybe that is something you can get. But for the most part, there was no sense of like you could lose anything, or that there was anything at stake. You weren't really trying to accomplish anything. You're trying to get through it. So, which again, I think is how it's designed. It's designed that way. It's meant to be that way. And but I kind of wish I had more at stake. Cons, feels like it wants to be a rhythm game but isn't. This is the biggest complaint I think I have this entire game, is that it's so badly, I think wants to, or at least, or at the very least should be a rhythm game, but it just isn't for some reason. And that I think it's so disappointing. There's so many moments where I'm like, how cool would it be if this whole sequence was like you had to time your jumps with the music, or you have to dodge something with the music, or something along those lines. And maybe even like there's the difference between like there's some sequences that are rhythm games, and there's some sequences that are just like get as many like hit as many of the bottles or something within the time limit or something. Like it just wants to have more of that gameplay, but it just doesn't have it, and so it ends up feeling, I think it's where a lot of complaints I see are people saying that this feels more like a playable, like an interactive movie than an actual game. I think this would have been the solution. This is make it a rhythm game. Maybe I'm just like fresh from, I just played Rhythm Heaven Groove, and so of course I want everything to be rhythm game now. But like, I don't know. This really felt like it needed to be a rhythm game, or at least like do something more video gamey here. The method for selecting each sequence is somewhat mundane. Yeah, so the way the game works is you basically, there's not deliberate, but there's essentially these like 3 or 4 different like arcs or chapters within the overarching story, and they end up like, so like the first one is you're in Stacy's bedroom, and you just walk around and look at the stuff in her room and like pick things up, and she'll like say something about it, basically say something snarky, and then there's some objects which will trigger a flashback, and there's a lot of those elements end up feeling very tedious, and I think it's helpful that the ones that are the like story ones are highlighted in yellow, but especially when you're first starting, you don't know that quite yet, and so you end up just like picking up anything you can find, and it just slows everything way down. And then you also get to this point where like in the later chapters, you're looking around all the stuff, but like you kind of are disincentivized to look at all the things that aren't yellow, because you know that they aren't going to progress the story. And since the story is a lot longer than I think personally it should be, you end up just like neglecting all the non like main objective side of things. So yeah, it's a little bit I don't know what it should, I mean, and again, this may be where it could have been, they could have had more gamey elements implemented here, but for the most part I think it's just, I don't know, it's just a little lacking. Progression, don't have much to say here, but pros, I'd say I appreciate being able to track how far along in the story I was. So in the menu, there's this wait, what do you call this? Not disc, what do you call it? Record player, or record, that has a bunch of these little dots that indicate like where you are in the overall story. And this was nice for me to look at, because I'm a type of person, especially with video games, where like if I feel like a game is taking forever to end, and like I kind of end up it's helpful for me to know like how much do I actually have left, because then I can start mentally thinking like, okay, can I set this down now and come back later, or am I almost there? And so it was nice to be able to see like, okay, I'm like this far along, I could probably take a break now and come back later. Highlighting the main items helped me move along. Yeah, so as I mentioned, like I don't love that whole system of like there's the white items that you can just pick up and she just makes a comment about them, versus the ones that are yellow, which will trigger a story element. But I do at least appreciate that they do highlight them. And I think once I recognized that, I was able to be like, okay, I don't really need to look at the other stuff. Let's just do this. Let's just keep moving the story along. And that was helpful. They totally could have just made everything look the same and just made it like kind of luck based about whether or not you got the ones you were supposed to. But I think it was helpful that it was this way. Cons. Pace often felt very slow. I've already mentioned that this game felt way longer. I think this might be the con too. Yeah. But yeah, like there, especially with those moments where you were just like dropped into a new location and you had to look around at different objects. Is this like a little bit like, oh, like, and you're not like, I think so much of the game is about like getting to know these characters, and I think I never really, there's only one location where I was like genuinely really interested to learn more about this character. The rest of it, I was kind of like, I don't really care all that much about these characters till like you look rummaging through their stuff. Yeah, it just felt very slow at times. The game is also way longer than it needs to be. I can't say for sure how long it was that I played this for, but it at least took me like a few days to get through it. Not like consistently, but like on and off. And that's ridiculous. Like that's maybe that was a factor of just me and how I chose to engage with the game. But like I just don't think a game like this should take more than 1 or 2 sittings, and it was at least 3 or 4, and I just think that's not acceptable for a game like this. Maybe if it was released like an actual chapter, it's like similar to something like Dispatch or something, but otherwise like no, it's like this should not happen. Okay, narrative. This is a big one for this game because this is kind of what this game is all about. Like it's all or nothing on this concept. So characters, pros. Each character is visually and personally distinct. I don't know how to make that more specific, more clear, but like basically like the characters are there's not a lot of characters in this. It's mainly the 3 main characters, and they're focusing on their friendship, whatever. But they all have very distinct personalities. I think you kind of get to know them relatively quickly. Um, but I think, especially with the character Cassandra, I really liked her a lot. I liked how much we got to know her throughout the course of this story. Um, and I think I don't know, picking her apart was really interesting. And I genuinely grew to love the friendship between the three friends. I think it took me a while. At the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of irritated. I was so irritated by them, um, especially the two that aren't Cassandra, Stacy and Slater. Um, but I grew to really like their friendship. And I think, especially towards the end, I really got a good sense of their chemistry and how much they mean to each other. So yeah, cons. They feel more like caricatures than actual people. Yeah, from the get go, they are just honestly they're insufferable. They're so. I wonder if this is, and this is basically all my complaints kind of get bundled together. They are so insufferable at the beginning, and for most of the first half or so of the game, they all talk in like this like very generic, um, like skater lingo or whatever. And the entire time playing, I was like, do people actually talk like this? Like, or did they ever talk like this? I don't think they did. Like, and like, even if they didn't, like, I think this language is so. No, actually, sorry. Even if they did, I feel like this language has been so, like, overdone at this point. And it's to give you an example, it's just like them being like like dude, we're totally gonna like be like radical. It's gonna be the tits, cha. Like they say cha so much, it drives me insane. And like I genuinely almost gave up on this game because of how they talked. Um, it's just yeah, it's really rough, and I think it's where like I would say like this is a big complaint I have, and I think even though I think it pays off in the end, because I think because the thing I'll give this game credit for and how it has this like really corny generic dialogue at the beginning, the thing I think it achieves in terms of the narrative is it begins with this very like surface level view of their relationship and their friendship and what it means to them, whatever. And it's all just about the rebellion, whatever. It's all about just being like counterculture or whatever. But in reality, it's they also really deeply care about each other, and they really like they can get hurt by each other, and they can get insecure about like how they are perceived by each other or being with each other, um, and that a lot of that the like corniness kind of slips away towards the end, which I think is really profound. And so I think I grew to appreciate it by the end. um I just wish it didn't have to be that bad. It just because it's rough. And so I think if you're giving this game a chance, I think just like it's not that long of a game, and so just like power through. Eventually, it'll either click for you or it won't. But like it was rough for me, and not even just with the main three characters. There's two characters in particular that like kind of made me roll my eyes. One is like meant to be like she kind of gives the vibe of like she's the popular girl, and her voice is just so cliche like popular girl voice. And then also the one Cassandra's dad, I think is just I don't know. He was just not convincing to me at all. But yeah. All right, story. So pros. Uh, it's a generic coming of age story executed solidly, and so this is a pro because it is generic. It's a generic coming of age story, but they execute it solidly. It is a solid coming of age story. So if you're looking for that in a game, here it is. It's solid. Not much more to say about that. I appreciate that there isn't some major tragedy that always feels typical in these stories. This is actually something I was thinking about towards the end because I kept kind of expecting it. I kept expecting like there's this whole side narrative with Stacy's relationship with her sister, or just like Stacy's sister in general. Period. And I was fully expecting that it was like going to be revealed that like oh Stacy's sister's passed away, or like or was mean to her or abusive to her or something, or like her dad's dead, or she's an orphan, or I don't know, something. I thought something traumatic would happen that would be revealed, because I think that's so typical in these stories. And while I think that there's a reason for that, I appreciated that this story didn't need that, and I think it didn't need to lean on that, because that's not what this is about. This is not a story about these teenagers overcoming some childhood tragedy. It's about them just learning how to move to like appreciate their friendships in this time in their life, and to be able to move on and uh anticipate their futures. I don't know. It's not. It doesn't need a big tragedy where the characters, yeah, are just put through hell. And so I appreciate it for that. The ending hit hard for someone who is currently grappling with letting go of my past and moving forward. Okay, maybe that, I kind of wrote that kind of dramatically, but more mainly to say, by the end of this game, I was like genuinely tearing up. Like I was starting to like talk to myself about like how I felt, and I was having a hard time because I was like choking up. And yeah, I think the game has, because it explores these characters, like they're all like, they all, whether they don't express it or not, they're all very nervous about this next chapter of their lives, and like letting go of each other. And even though like they know they'll always be able to come back to each other, they always also know that this is probably the last time they'll ever be here in this spirit, in this way. And letting go of that is so hard and so heartbreaking, but it's also so necessary. And I think that was something that I was really deeply connected with. And there's this one sequence at the very, very end that I just think is so profoundly moving. Like I genuinely, it was like very cathartic, honestly, to do this last action. So yeah, I think it was really genuinely really meaningful. Wait, cons. Okay, I already said this earlier, but it's too long for its own good to the point of boredom. Um, yeah, it's like I don't know where that we necessarily would cut aspects, but I think it's just it's again it's I think it comes down to mainly the sequences where you're in the bedrooms or whatever location you're at, and you're having to just like go from sequence to sequence. But it's a little too long. I think this is a game that I don't know exactly how long it took me to beat, but it should have been like a 2 to 3 hour game. And I think it was a little bit more than that, like 4 or 5 hours. And that's too long for this. The corny dialogue makes it really hard to connect with the characters for the first few hours of gameplay. Yeah, I've already talked about this. But yeah, it was really like hard. It was really hard to get into the game at the beginning, because I was genuinely like, these characters are so annoying. They are driving me nuts. I'm not a fan of this. I'm done. Like, so yeah, but again, later on it kind of goes away a bit, and it becomes a bit more like focused. But even then, I still wish they had done a little bit more to like tone this down. Lastly, the normalization of drinking culture amongst teens. Yeah, okay, so this is maybe one where maybe my age and maybe my like my goody two shoesness like is like coming out, whatever. But like, I don't want to say that like this doesn't happen, this culture doesn't exist or didn't exist or whatever, and that there isn't still something to say about community and them finding community in these spaces, whatever. But they frequently in this game talk about like over drinking to the point of like getting a hangover or throwing up. And I'm like, these are 16, 17 year olds, if not younger at times, during the story when we do flashbacks. And like, that's not okay. Like of course, like I don't know, it just something that's very like upsetting about that. Like, and I think it's one of those things where like, as much as I appreciate this the story for not having some big tragedy happen in the story, I also feel like that's also in many ways very important, especially if you're going to have alcohol and drugs as a key factor in the story, because it's like, that is like really dangerous. Like, sure, it's fun, and I think they'll have memories that'll last them forever or whatever, but like, it's so dangerous. Like, you can get legitimate mental damage from drinking at that young of an age, from over drinking at that young of an age. And so I think um like I definitely think like the dad is in the wrong and how he treats Cassandra, and how strict he is with her, and how like he's very regimented in how he wants her to be. I also am like, yeah, but also don't do that. Like, don't be going out and like, as a 16-year-old with and also like the final. Again, this is getting spoilers, but like the final sequences, I believe, with a bunch of like college students, and so these are some underage kids going to a college party. I might be wrong about that. That might be just be other high schoolers. I just read that wrong, but like, I don't know. I just find that so dangerous and so like not a good thing to be like putting out there. And again, it's like maybe I'm being too like what was the phrase like I don't know. I just feel like it is that serious. Like drinking a little bit is fine. Over drinking like to the point of throwing up and blacking out, like whatever. Especially as a young teen, that's so dangerous. And so I'm not a fan of that. But anyway, that's my soapbox. But yeah, so this was a bit of a mixed bag for me. I think I ultimately ended up coming out of this game somewhat appreciative of what it is, but also just really wishing it could have been something a lot more. I think truly if they just switched gears on this game and committed to making it a rhythm game, or like a variety game where it had rhythm game elements but also just aiming elements, whatever. I had this idea of they just make it like a rating system where like you can play the game as it is like currently normally, but like each chapter has, you get a score at the end of it where you get like you got an A rank, try again for an S rank. And then I'd be like, okay, cool. Like then that would motivate me to even go back and try to get a better rank on all the chapters. So I don't know. I think this truly, I think if they like were to go back and remake this game, I would be like, please make it more of a game, and this could be an all-time great game. I still have my issues with it within the story and everything, but I think it could have been an all-timer. I just don't think, I think because it just minimizes the game elements, I think just some weird things to the story, it just kind of holds itself back. And so that's why I give this a score of 3 out of 5. I think it's solid. I think I recommend playing at the very least, especially if you're not a big gamer. I highly recommend it. This is a very, very, very easy game to pick up, and if you are just interested in stories that have relatively interesting characters, something super mind-blowing, it's very simple, this is a really good gateway into playing games. So yeah, so I highly recommend it if you haven't played many games. And if you have played a lot of games, I still recommend it. It's not very expensive. It's like $20 for a decent length experience, but also you can get Silk Song for $20. You can get Hollow Knight for $20. You can get Undertale for $10. I'm pretty sure. There's so many other games you can play for this much that have a lot more to offer from it. So yeah, so I'm stopping it there with a score of 3 out of 5. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. I recorded another one for Xenoblade Chronicles a while ago, but I think I'm gonna try and edit that one, or that was just a good test round for me. But expect some more reviews from me in the future. I am currently playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for the first time, kind of. So maybe that'll be next one. So we'll see. Anyway, see ya.